The old grandfather clock in the corner of the living room had just finished chiming 10 in the morning when the daily ritual began. It started not with a sound, but with a shift in the air, a gentle thrum of anticipation that seemed to emanate from the largest creature in the house. Atlas, a Great Dane of such staggering size he was often mistaken for a small horse, would lift his massive, noble head from his paws. His ears, soft as worn velvet, would perk up, rotating like satellite dishes locking onto a signal. The signal, in this case, was a soft, mewling chorus beginning to drift from the basket by the fireplace. This was the title of their story, played out daily in the sun-dappled living room. Gentle giant dog helps raise adorable baby kittens every day. Atlas's assignment, self-appointed and executed with a solemn dedication of a knight guarding the royal cradle, was to oversee the 5 tiny foster kittens currently residing in the plush-lined basket. Their mother, a scrappy tortoiseshell named Patches, had been rescued from a storm drain, and while she trusted the humans in the house implicitly, her true partner in the delicate art of raising 5 bundles of chaotic energy was a 180-pound dog who could have swallowed one whole with a single accidental gulp. He never would. With a groan that sounded like a rusty gate, Atlas heaved himself to his feet, his claws clicking a familiar rhythm on the hardwood floor. He padded over to the basket, his shadow falling over the squirming mass of fur. Patches, who had been nursing, looked up and gave a slow, respectful blink. It was a feline equivalent of a shift-change nod. She stretched, leaped gracefully from the basket, and headed for her food bowl, her work done for the moment. The nursery was now under the care of the gentle giant. The kittens, a calico, 2 tabbies, a tuxedo, and a little ginger, were just beginning to explore the world beyond the immediate comfort of their mother and siblings. Their eyes, wide and blue, were taking in the universe, and the largest, most fascinating part of that universe was Atlas. The first to venture forth was always Whiskers, the bold tabby. He scrambled over the padded edge of the basket, tumbling onto the rug with a tiny, indignant squeak. He shook his head, spotted Atlas's nearby paw, and decided it was a mountain that needed conquering. Atlas watched, his head cocked, as the kitten attached himself to his dew-clue, a tiny, needle-toed pirate boarding a galleon. Atlas didn't flinch. He simply let out a soft, rumbling sigh, a sound like distant thunder that seemed to vibrate with pure patience. This was the heart of the story. It wasn't just about proximity. It was about active, conscious nurturing. When the tuxedo kitten, Socks, stumbled too far in her wobbly explorations, it was Atlas who would gently nudge her back towards the safety of the basket with a broad, careful plane at his nose. His movements were so deliberate, so exquisitely controlled. It was as if he understood the profound fragility of the lives entrusted to him. He was a living, breathing safety rail. His most vital role, however, was that of the mobile warmth and napping station. Once the kittens had exhausted themselves with their initial burst of morning energy, they would seek him out. They would burrow into the thick, brindle fur of his flank, finding cozy nooks between his front legs or curling up against the steady, rhythmic drum of his heartbeat. Atlas would lie perfectly still, a furry sphinx, his own eyes drifting closed in a contented doze. He would only adjust his position with the slow, glacial care of a glacier, ensuring no tiny tail or paw was trapped. One afternoon, the littlest of the bunch, the ginger runt named Peanut, was shivering despite the warmth of the room. He was separated from the others, looking lost and mewling piteously. Atlas observed this for a moment. Then, with an intelligence that was breathtaking, he did something that made the human watching from the doorway catch a breath. He lowered his head, picked up a soft, felted wool ball from a nearby toy basket, not with his teeth, but by carefully pinning it between his broad, leathery lips, and carried it over to Peanut. He then used his nose to roll the ball gently until it came to rest against the shivering kitten. Peanut, sensing the warmth in the novel object, immediately stopped crying, curled around the ball, and began to purr, a sound as faint as a hummingbird's wings. It was a simple act, but one brimming with profound empathy. The afternoons were for lessons. As the kittens grew, their play became more robust. They needed to learn the boundaries of gentle play. They would pounce on Atlas's tail, a magnificent, whip-like appendage that could clear a coffee table in a single wag. But under their tiny assault, it became a docile serpent, swaying just enough to be interesting, but never with enough force to harm. They would bat at his ears, and he would let them, only twitching when a claw got a little too sharp. He was their practice dummy, teaching them how to sheathe their claws and control their bite through his own immense tolerance. The bond was a language spoken without words. It was in the way the kittens would instinctively knead their tiny paws into his fur, a comforting memory of their mother, and Atlas would thump his tail once in acknowledgement. It was in the way he would carefully lick the top of their heads, a giant's tender grooming, and they would push up into the gesture, purring in unison. He was their jungle gym, their security blanket, their living, breathing sun. As dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and purple, the ritual would wind down. Patches would return, leaping back into the basket, and a soft, trilling call would summon her babies. One by one, they would detach themselves from Atlas's fur, full of milk and ready for sleep. Atlas would finally rise, shaking himself out in a great, rippling shudder that sent loose fur and a few stray kittens, gently tumbling. He would stretch, his long spine curving, and then amble over to his own oversized bed. But before he settled for the night, he would always walk back to the basket one last time. He would lower his great head and sniff each kitten, as if taking roll call. Satisfied that all 5 of his tiny, temporary charges were safe, accounted for, and dreaming their kitten dreams, he would return to his bed, circling 3 times before collapsing with contented, world-weary sigh. In the quiet of the evening, the title of their story was complete. It wasn't just that a gentle giant dog helped raise adorable baby kittens. It was that, in the soft, forgiving light of his home, a giant had found his purpose not in strength or size, but in the quiet, magnificent power of gentleness. And every day, as the sun set and rose again, he proved that the biggest hearts often have the softest beats.